I want to talk about mental health and I want to talk about it a little bit in depth and kind of how I've navigated mental health. I really felt like this was a really good subject if I were to choose to talk about it. So we're talking about it today. Um, I want to talk about the depths of mental health and having particular people around you help you with that, and how it benefits you being able to get out of a certain space and into another. And I feel like this is always a great subject, no matter how you talk about it, because the more knowledge we have about mental health, the better that each of us can strive and we can all take a piece from it for ourselves. We're going to jump straight into it. And I'm going to give you guys a tidbit of right now in my life and kind of what has been happening for me mentally the past year. So it's no secret that life does hit. And I think for me recently, death has really been the largest one. And it's been the main one that I have not spoken about at all. I really have talked about a lot of the past in my childhood and stuff like that. But recent death has affected me in ways of a lot of things unsaid and a lot of unknown, and how that has been affecting me at only in my 20s and not realizing that what happened in my childhood is back. And yeah, so there was a recent passing um over the past half year that I'm not giving like specific timelines or anything like that because there are quite a few family members that have passed um on past half a year, so I'm not giving like any specifics and anyone dialing down to. I mean, I guess I will because obviously I have to really talk about how it landed me back into my childhood trauma. So and I've told you guys before that one day I would talk about it. So we'll talk a little bit about it today. Maybe another time we'll go more in depth of a lot of what my immediate family did to me as a child. A recent death in my immediate family affected me big time. Believe it or not, this death really affected me in a way I didn't think that it ever would, and I'm trying to understand it. When I was a little girl, obviously the man who raised me, my grandfather, um, was murdered. And I went through this whole spiral. And prior to that, I always knew that this person in my family despised me. Now, mind you, like I was a child, this is like I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And, I'm very confused at what a child can do to an adult. And I do understand that some children can do certain things to anybody can do anything to anybody, you know? But the biggest question in my head has been, what did I do to to my immediate family? Like, what did I do? And I narrow it down to existence. And we all know that children and animals can sense everything. And I've always known that I was highly disliked from my immediate family, not my mom or brothers. It was more of like uncles, aunts, grandmother. Obviously, I think I've told you guys that I grew up around my grandmother and I saw her nearly every day of my life, but we never had a relation. Like, the only thing I know that we relate to is that we both like Elton John. That was the only relatable aspect that I had. And that, like, I eat really slow like her. And I'm a very similar cook to her. Those are the only things that I know, but I don't know those for facts, just the Elton John situation, which is really odd, right? My grandfather owns various properties next to each other. And when he divorced my grandmother before I was even born, he was like, take it, leave me alone. And you're talking about after like 30 years. Like they were together for forever and a decade, you know? And so in my family, it was incredibly strict. My grandfather held, like, I have a lot of those ways where having kids out of wedlock was such a big thing that was not a no. Like, my mother never actually told my family that she was pregnant with me until she had me in the hospital, and she called my grandfather and said, Dad, I just had a daughter. And I didn't want to tell you because it was supposed to be a boy, and I was supposed to give him up for adoption because I already have boys, you know, and I was born out of wedlock. So not being married was huge. Soon to find out that my grandfather would completely let his guard down and take me under his wing and saw me in a way that he didn't even see his own children. He accepted me. He didn't have to. He raised me. He took me away from my mom, you know, years later after that and all that stuff. Some of it I've gone into some detail about. But here on YouTube, we'll go into more depth about it. Now, my grandmother held the very same morals in which, you know, disownment was the thing. Like, we don't communicate with you, you know, and she despised my mother because she had me out of wedlock and hid it from the family and all this stuff like that. That was very huge because my mom was the firstborn. And so for her to keep secrets, that was such a big thing. Like, secrets were not a thing in my family, which is why I have trouble with secrets. I don't, certain things obviously keep very personal and blah, blah, blah. And there's certain things I'm so glad I never told any man. Certain things when it comes to your family, you know what I mean? So my grandmother, all my life, still to this day, still alive, still holds this against me. And I never had a relationship with her. I very vaguely had any kind of relationship with my tios, my aunts. Like, I never, and I saw them all the time. We were at Christmases and all. It was like they were almost like strangers in my presence. And I felt that as a child the entire time. Now, I want to talk about richness very quickly. Although I was surrounded, I was a happy girl in a lonely world, is really what it was. And, you know, my instincts were so correct the entire time when I was a child. Because now as a young adult, never, ever have I ever been celebrated or appreciated or any sort. And it even affected into my brothers. I have brothers. I have older brothers. I do not talk to them. I do not communicate with them. It seeped through my immediate family. You know what I mean? And it was very strange growing up around that. And now that I'm in my 20s, I'm like, what? Although there was a lot of chaos constantly going around all the time in my childhood, all the time. It was just like, you know, some people, you know, who know and were very well aware of the world as to when that news broke to the world about my grandfather. A lot of people think that's the only thing that happened. I'm like, no. Like, that was probably the least tragic thing that happened in my life. The murder was the least tragic. The least. Isn't that mind-blowing? And I praise my family, the ones who love me, my grandfather, my mom, my stepdad, like the people who raised me. I praise them because the richness I grew up, I was rich in love from them and in guidance and in wisdom. And, you know, I did grow up too fast and I was around a lot of adults. I was and still am the baby of my family. Of course, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of concerns. And I am in my young adulthood, you know, and I'm just like trying to wrap my head around how you can beat a child over her head constantly with all the things, like financially, and they took my childhood home away. I mean, it was so bad. It was horrendous. I've never had to be surrounded by so much greed and nastiness and selfishness in my entire life. I discovered that from my own family. These are people I grew up around. I saw every day. These are people I had Christmases with. These are people I had Thanksgiving with. These are people I had birthdays with. And I say birthdays because like they never treated me like I was even their own at all. This is my blood. Like my mom's brothers and sisters. My mom's a mom. Like insane. With this recent passing, it brought a lot up. And I'll never forget where I went after I found out that this passing happened. And I was sobbing the entire way there. It was the longest 20-minute drive I've ever had in my life. And I was just like, but I want answers. Like, I want to know, why did you hate me so much? What did I do to you as a child? Because now, having children out of wedlock is such a big thing. It's such a big thing. It's normal. But my family, that's not. And it's very frowned upon. And it's very, like you may have, you could have just ran somebody over and unalived them and they still would accept you. But wedlock, no. I thought that I would reach into my full womanhood, because I'm not there yet, that I would reach into my full womanhood and be able to have this conversation with them and be able to ask the questions I want to ask and at least get something out of it so I can have some sort of closure. Because a lot of the other things that happen, I have a lot of, like, I forgive them and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to wear that on my sleeve. It's very ugly. But the child in me is hurt, you know? And what does a child do to an adult, you know? And so with that passing, it's like now we'll never know. You know, maybe it's somebody's way of protecting me from knowing the reality. You ever heard of, if they don't like your mom, they don't like you? So I'm going to shift to this a little bit. And just because she was my mom, you know, it doesn't mean I'm biased. But my mom was a very smart, uneducated woman. So she had intelligence, very street smart. She didn't have an education. I mean, she obviously went to high school. She did all that stuff. She didn't have college education. She didn't have any of that at all. And I'll tell you this. My mom, the way she moved and handled everything, this is prior to her being sick. The woman I saw when I was a little girl, I saw the most beautiful thing. The way she dressed, the way she spoke, the way she acted, the way she ate. Her house was immaculate because we took care of it. You know, I'm vacuuming since I was 3 years old, honey. You know, cars were clean. I mean, she was just the way she moved. I aspired to be very similar to her. Sorry, guys, trying to get this. I don't know, because I moved it and then, you know. Yeah, I aspired to be very similar to her in that way. The way things didn't bother her. She had everything in the way she wanted because she could, and she did. And when she got sick, I started to realize, oh, I don't think they like my mom. I think they despised my mom the entire time. I don't think they ever liked my mom. And her getting sick was like, yeah, like they were rooting for that. They were rooting for, you're talking about her own brothers. Her own mother was doing that to her. And it obviously, some of it landed on me. And it blows my mind that it's your family. Honey, take the lesson from me. Sometimes it's your family. You know, how they say it on TikTok, it be your family. It be your family sometimes. It really does. And I think part of that sickness with my mom was because she constantly took on all that stress and all that hate and all that envy and jealousy from her own family. I think a large part of it, she felt like when she was getting sick, she had let herself go. She would stop taking care of herself and then boom, she got sick. And it was like she was still around those people. She was still around them, knowing that her own sons also were even against her, my brothers. I never thought that my brothers loved my mom the way I love my mom, the way I see my mom, even though I was supposed to be adopted originally, even though I wasn't even supposed to be here at all. We'll go into further depth another time. But yeah, the questions that I have had surrounding myself the past half a year to a year have been insane. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to this because a lot of us have a lot of questions towards a lot of people. Why did you do this to me? Like, for example, like in relationships, if you unfortunately were in some sort of abusive situation or whatever, mental, physically, and verbally, there's all types of abuse. And, we all have questions. I think now where I'm at, I think it's better that I just don't know and that I trust my gut and my instincts for what it is. And I may not need those questions. Somebody's above might, be saying, I don't think you need it, Daniela. I think you're good. And I think that has been a struggle mentally for me, and it's been a battle very often. Wondering, like, am I not pretty enough? Am I not skinny enough? Am I not talented enough? Am I not this enough? Am I not that enough? Am I not successful enough? Am I not, am I not independent enough? Am I not well rounded enough? Do I not dress well enough? Is my hair not pretty? You know what I mean? It was all those questions. But towards my own family, why did they not love me that way? Why do they despise my mom? Why do they still to this day despise me? What did a child do? That will be the end of today's subject, you guys. I went into a little bit more depth than I really wanted to, but it's been a minute, and that's just kind of what I've been battling with is really a lot of family stuff, a lot of personal, and I stepped away from the camera and shifted my whole life in a different way. And I'm obviously in a completely different world in a lot of aspects and for the better. And yeah, I miss you guys so much. Trust me, I do. I'm okay. I'm here. My voice is still shot, but it's always good when it's shot. Those of you who come to see us on TikTok, every day, I'll see you guys tomorrow and Saturday and all next week, etc. I love you so much. Be good to one another. Be kind to one another. Love one another. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, just let your girl know. And until next time, please be safe out there, you guys. I love you from the bottom of my heart.